21 CFR Part 11. Electronic records and electronic signatures. Electronic signatures are called 21 CFR Part 11 signatures. Unique electronic signature should be assigned to each user. Electronic signature should be certified in writing by the owner of the signature. Electronic signature should be legally equivalent to a binding signature. 21 CFR Part 11 requirements are applicable to records maintained in electronic format in place of paper format records. 21 CFR Part 11 is not applicable for records generated by computer as paper-based printouts of electronic records. Records maintained in electronic format in place of paper format, and records maintained in electronic format in addition to paper format are called electronic records. Records submitted to regulatory authority in electronic format are also called electronic records. Appropriate controls should be maintained for the computer systems used for documentation. Those controls includes restriction of system access for electronic records to authorized personnel, to use operational system checks, to use authority checks, to use device checks. Operation system checks are the system controls that implements a specific workflow. Operational system checks enforce sequencing of critical system functionality. In other way, operational system checks are the checks for a computer system performed to determine whether the system is following sequential order and prevents occurring the operational sequence in incorrect order. For example, system checks that prevent changes to a record after it has been reviewed and signed. To implement operational system checks, document how the computer system prevents steps from occurring in the wrong order. Explain how operational system checks will ensure that the proper sequence of events is followed. To limit the system access for electronic records to authorized personnel. Entry to computer system should be controlled by unique login and passwords for every individual. Authorizations for entry of data creation or modification administration should be defined, and the checks for confirming those authorizations should be performed. Device checks are tests to ensure the validity of data inputs and operational instructions. Computer systems should be tested to ensure the validity of data inputs and operational instructions. Personnel requirements. Persons who develop, maintain or use electronic systems should have their education, training and experience to perform their assigned tasks. The specific Part 11 requirements are validation, audit trail, legacy systems, copies of records, record retention. The approach of computer system validation should consider potential of the system to affect product quality, safety and record integrity. That means the computer systems which are having possible effect on product quality, safety and data integrity shall only be validated. For example, if you are having 10 computer systems, and in those 10 computer systems if you are using 9 computer systems for analysis and 1 computer system for documentation, computer system validation shall be performed only those 9 systems which can affect product quality, since they are using for analysis, and the remaining system used for documentation shall be avoided for validation. The approach of validation should be justified. That means the approach or criteria followed for performing computer system validation should be correct and acceptable. during CSV. Impact of computer system might have on accuracy, reliability, integrity, availability and authenticity of electronic records and signatures should be considered. That means, for suppose if you are performing CSV for HPLC during validation of that HPLC, whether the HPLC is producing electronic data with accuracy, reliability, integrity, availability and authenticity or not should be checked. Computerized systems should be validated based on risk assessment. That means a risk assessment should be performed on the computer systems available for those systems which are having impact on product quality. Those shall be validated, and the remaining which are not having any impact on product quality can be avoided for performing computer system validation. In the same way, risk assessment shall be performed for each and every computer system for evaluating the impact on product quality or safety or record integrity by that computer system. Based on that risk assessment results, whether the computer system is required to validate or not shall be decided. For more guidance on CSV, refer General Principles of Software Validation and also industry guidance such as GAMP4 Guide. Audit trail should be enabled for the computer systems used to create, modify or delete GMP records during regular usage. Audit trail should be enabled for the computer systems based on possible risk on product quality, safety and record integrity. Based on the results of risk assessment, appropriate controls should be applied. Audit trail should be computer generated and time stamped. Changes to records do not obscure previous entries. Computer systems operational prior to the 20th of August 1997, meeting all the requirements of electronic records currently and having documented evidence and justification that the system is fit for its intended use, including having an acceptable level of record security and integrity, if applicable, are called the legacy systems. All the electronic records are subject to inspection. That means the regulatory inspectors are allowed to inspect electronic data produced by computer systems during audits. During audit, access to computer systems should be provided if they request the same for verification of electronic data or records. The manufacturer should allow inspection, review and copying of electronic records in a human-readable format at manufacturing site using company hardware, following established procedures and techniques for accessing records. If the company producing electronic data in paper format, copies of those records shall be provided. FDA recommends to supply copies of electronic records by producing copies of records held in common portable formats when records are maintained in these formats. If the company using established automated conversion or export methods to make copies in a more common format shall be provided. Examples of such formats include but are not limited to PDF, XML or SGML. Records should be protected to enable their accurate and ready retrieval throughout the record's retention period. That means all records should be segregated properly in folders with relevant names as appropriate for ready retrieval whenever required in its retention period. Electronic records should be maintained intact without any changes or modification or deletion of data from that record. Electronic records should be maintained intact up to its defined retention period with its original accuracy. For suppose the electronic records related to finished product analysis should be maintained up to 1 year after product expiry. For example, the batch P001 for the product paracetamol tablets expiry date is May 2025 and the defined retention period for its finished product analytical report is up to 1 year after product expiry. The electronic record of batch P001 finished product analytical report should be retained up to May 2026, and after May 2026 the relevant electronic records shall be deleted. Records retention should be based on risk assessment and value of the records over time. That means based on the importance of the electronic record related to product quality and relevant GMP guideline requirements, the retention period for the electronic record shall be decided. Policy for records retention should be justified. That means the company should be in a position to explain the reasons for deciding the retention period for the electronic record. Electronic records shall be preserved in electronic format and non-electronic media such as microfilm, microfiche and paper, or to a standard electronic file format. Examples of such formats include but are not limited to PDF, XML or SGML. Copies of electronic records should preserve their original content and meaning. That means there should be no changes to original electronic data. As long as electronic record requirements are fully satisfied and the content and meaning of the records are preserved and archived, electronic version of the record shall be deleted. Paper electronic record and signature components can coexist. Thank you.